Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. Today I'm talking with Julia Meitov Hersey about her translation work for, um, what the hell did I forget the name? Vita Nostra.
We can edit this, right? For
Just
my
gonna
own sake,
start
I'm gonna
over.
do this. I'm going to do something like this. I'm gonna forget my own name or Marina's name or something. Yeah, that's like inevitable.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
I think we should keep this. This is great. This is like putting me at ease.
good, good. I'm glad that I can help. Okay, one more time. Uh, Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. My name is Dakota, and today I'm talking with Julia Meitov Hersey about her translation work on Vita Nostra by Marina and Sergey Dyachenko. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
So, we actually have a special part of this interview where Marina, the author, one of the authors, actually wrote a little blurb about the book. Do you mind reading that for us, Julia?
Not at all. What is this book about? One day, Sasha Samohina discovers that the world is not what she thought it was, and that in this new world, she has a special place, one she cannot decline and did not choose. She must work hard, overcome fear, push herself beyond her limits, and fulfill her mission. Marina says, I've always loved books with this kind of plot. This is the fate of Bilbo Baggins, the fate of Harry Potter. It's a wonderful archetype, the one that resonated deeply with both me and Sergey. This is also a book about learning, which I love as well. As a child, I had a favorite book that had no magic at all. It was about teenagers learning to manufacture parts for tractors in a vocational school after World War II. It was an amazing, gripping book, and I still remember certain fragments by heart. The idea for Vita Nostra came out of two events, a dream I once had and a play, Eugene Ionesco's The Lesson, which my husband, daughter, and I saw at the Kiev Theater Institute where I was working at the time. It was a student production. And if I could just add to Marina's description, to me, it's also a book about mother-daughter relationship that is kind of sort of stays a little bit in the background, but to me, that was always a very pivotal part of, very major part of this book.
It's funny because in the beginning, her mom is quite dismissive of her concerns, which seems so strange to me growing up in the, cell phone era where everybody's concerned about
Yeah.
everybody.
Well, I think it's the tough Slavic parent approach, suck it up and deal and, don't talk to strangers, but if you do, you can stand up for yourself. So I think that's a little bit a part of that as well. That's a cultural difference. But yeah, I think, timing wise, I think Sasha is growing up in probably early 90s. And yeah, that checks out. You have to be tough. And the parents are a little bit more dismissive of your, concerns.
Well, they're also on vacation and you're going to see weird people that might look at you. Things happen. So,
Yeah, they do, and you have to stand up for yourself. So that's definitely a cultural thing, I think, and a sign of times as well. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so how did you end up as the translator for this quite thick book?
It is quite a ridiculous story. I do not recommend it to anyone. If you ever want to become a translator, don't listen to me. For me, it was out of desperation. It just certain things that I wanted to share, certain books that I wanted to share with, well, mostly my family. I have two daughters who Russian is, mostly passive. Like they don't normally, pick up Russian books, and a husband who's American. So I'm like the minority in the family. And so there's certain things that I always want to share. It's like, oh my God, this is a great book. And, and it doesn't exist in translation. So I started translating, probably about, 15 years ago, just doing it for them, certain children's books that I wanted them to read. And then eventually it was in the conversation with weirdly Lev Grossman, before Lev Grossman of the Magician's Fame, before he was Lev Grossman of the Magician's Fame. I was at his reading for the first Magician's book, and there were like five people in the audience. One of them was his mom, and the other one was me. It was, it was before he became Lev. And the magicians had so much of Vita Nostra in it that it was some sort of like a collective subconscious at work. And I was talking to him after the reading and mentioned Vita Nostra, and he said, "Can you translate a chapter for me to read?" And I did, and he kept asking for more. And it's really thanks to Lev, and thanks to, and because of my desire to share it with him and my family and just have that book out there. It wasn't on commission. There was no money involved. I didn't think it would ever be published, but I kept doing it for him. And then he really encouraged me so we became friends, and he really encouraged me to try to submit it. And then it took like another 9 years of different weird, refusals and denials and lack of rights, and then getting the rights. And it was really thanks to my amazing literary agent, who became the Dyachenkos literary agent, Josh Getzler of HG Literary. It was thanks to him that the book was published, but he stuck by my side for like 9 years. As we all really believed in it. It was something that didn't exist. It was just this genre that just didn't exist. There was nothing like it. And so we all sort of had that belief that if we just persevere, it'll come about and it'll eventually sell and be published. So,
Okay.
but yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend anyone to, be waiting for 12 years, 12 years to publish one book. So,
Well,
I'm glad it happened.
it's good that it was like a passion project then. Like you just wanted to share it.
100%, 100%. It was a passion project, 100%. Yeah, it
Did
still
you
is.
did you know the Dyachenkos before you did this?
No, I ended up translating it, and then because it was there, I just, wrote to them on whatever social media and said, "I have this translation if you'd like that." And this is Sergey in a nutshell. He responded to everything. He responded to all the fans. He responded to every single letter, and so he wrote back to me. And despite the fact that at this point, the rights belong to someone else, and there was no way that we could have had it published, we started talking about it, and so we became close friends. So the one thing that the book did for me, yeah, it is a big book, but it was probably 6 months of my life to translate it. But then it just opened an entirely new world. Like the people I've met through it, from Sergey to and Marina to other people who were instrumental in publishing it, or instrumental in getting the word out. The network of friends and the opportunities that this brought to me, it was life changing, 100% life changing. So it was like just a totally different world that I now exist in. Just very meta in this case. Yeah.
So before the interview, we were talking, and your day job is very different than translating literary works.
Well, it is and it isn't. It is. So what I do for a living is I'm a technical training and development specialist at an insurance company. So I mean, my job is translating technical terms and software to users. So I still think of it, I'm still sort of the middle person between, two different types, two different groups. I always think of that as translating anyway. So I'm the mediary. I don't produce original content, but I make sure that the content gets to somebody else. So it's not that far from that's what I'm good at. That's what I love doing.
That's a
So,
brilliant way to
yeah.
describe that too. I've never thought about it as translating, but it really is very technical,
Hmm.
high concept things
Right.
to everyday users.
Yeah, that's how I always thought of technical writing. It's still kind of the same thing, just a different medium, different content. So it's not that far.
With Vita Nostra, there's a lot of concepts that I wouldn't know how to translate. How do you tackle those things?
Uh, so translation is it's always a team effort, always. I'd like to take all the credit, but no, I had so many people. Well, first of all, a lot of research, just a lot of so the thing about the way Marina and Sergey wrote their book. So Sergey is a professional psychiatrist. His first occupation was psychiatry, and Marina is an actress. So there's a lot of, so I think of their books, and they have, in the state, in English, the only four published or will be published. The fourth is coming out in June, but they have like, I think 30, don't quote me on this, I think 32 novels. And I think of each one of them as a sort of an exploration of a diagnosis. So to me, Vita Nostra is quite possibly anxiety. So I think Sasha definitely has anxiety, and possibly ADHD, or I don't know, but there's something definitely there that she is working through in her, late teens, early 20s. There is a book about called um, I'm gonna blank out on this right now. The Cave, which is about an actress theater world where everyone just has this wild, insane dreams that kind of betray their subconscious, or so there's always some sort of concept that Sergey was exploring in each book, and so all that I had to go and research. And he was there to give me all the materials and tell me, okay, you need to read this, you need to read about this, and there's a lot of you know philosophy stuff that I needed to explore because I just wasn't really an expert on this. And with Assassin of Reality, it was some technical stuff, astronomy that someone else helped me with. There's a pilot I consulted because I didn't know how to translate certain terms. So there's definitely a lot of teamwork that came together. Writing, I think, is a solitary business, but translation is always, you're always looking for feedback. You're always looking for someone who knows better, and focus groups and even dictionaries. I have a group of translators. We have a group chat, and that's a very active group chat. And we're constantly talking about the challenges and how would you handle this. And, you talk to people who are, well, smarter and more experienced than you. And sometimes you come up with stuff to help them. And so that's a very long-winded answer, but you're always looking for feedback. That's how you deal with concepts. And sometimes it's a very simple sentence and you're just stuck and you need someone to help you with. So.
Yeah. I started taking Chinese as just a fun thing to do, and boy, oh boy, do I not understand how translation works.
I don't understand that either. I have no idea how that works. I think you just kind of look at the sentence and you say it in your head in your target language. Um, and sometimes it's completely different from the source language. Sometimes it kind of flows together the same way, and sometimes it's just like you have to completely put it upside down and shake it up and give it in a totally different way. So I don't know how it works. I mean, I think there's certain things you can definitely teach about translation,
Yeah.
absolutely. But the more you do it, the more it starts making sense.
Well, I would imagine, especially with Vita Nostra, maybe the specific word isn't the most important, but the feeling. Like it feels like this book is all about feeling.
Um, yes and no, you're right, but also because it's a book about words, words are so important. You really
True.
don't want to get that wrong. Like things like, and there are certain things I would have done differently. even the word reverberate, oh my God, that was like 2 weeks of pain because I'm still not sure I did that right. And it's such an important thing, the whole reverberation. Because in Russian, it's more like the word is sound that resonates, something that you hear, but not just hear, you really hear. And then there's no, I don't, I haven't come up with anything better, but reverberate wasn't exactly right, but it was kind of a cool word. So there are definitely certain things I would have done totally differently. Yeah.
Just as the translator, or just if you were writing this as a creative project in English?
Uh, I, I never really think of writing any original content. So as a
Okay.
translator for sure. Yeah. One of my friends who read a very early draft, we always laugh about it. He read the first 3 pages and said, "Oh, this is great. I would have done it totally differently." So we sort of, this is a motto now. Like, would you have done it totally differently? Yeah.
Well, that brings up how it's written, right? So
Yeah.
the book is kind of in these shorter chunks. Um, so
But
like
no chapters. Everyone always complains that there are no chapters, so they don't know where to stop reading.
you just pick a
Yeah,
page,
yeah, yeah,
but
pretty
it
much.
it makes the flow feel much different than like
Mm.
an English book where you have these distinct scenes that
Mhm.
are part of a longer construction in the chapter. But this, it's really scene after scene.
Mhm.
Was that difficult to kind of translate, or did that come out of the translate?
Uh, no, I think it's really more of a tradition in Russian novels. In having grown up on Russian classical Russian literature, that is not always a clear chapter. It's
Yeah.
not always about the reader's experience. Okay, Russian novelists, especially the classics, they don't particularly care about your experience. They're just writing their thing. So I don't think like Dostoevsky cares how you feel about it. But so it's always about the flow more than okay, we need to let the reader a chance to breathe, or it's probably late, we don't want them to read it to 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh yeah, we do, we don't want them to stop. And I think this is part of like Sasha's experience. When does she ever get a break? She doesn't. It's a book that if it weren't 800 pages, you probably would normally read it in one night, because it's such a continuous experience, and she never gets a break.
And
So
it really is like that when you're reading it.
mhm.
It is just I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
I was like,
There's a part where like things are starting to make sense to
yeah,
her, without any spoilers, when that whole learning and um the process starts to sort of come together. And we've all experienced that in higher ed. This is like, well, you've been doing something for a semester and then suddenly it's like, oh my God, this is what it's about. And things just kind of come together, and they start making sense. And that was the part where I had to step away because my eyes were so dry because I wasn't blanking. I was literally like sitting there like a lizard typing away, and not like I needed eye drops, and I needed to step. I needed the physical break because I
yeah.
was experiencing. It's a very meta experience. Like she's, I don't want to spoil anything, but she's growing things, and things are happening to her physically from her mental efforts. And I literally had to, okay, all right, I'm gonna walk away because I'm having physical difficulties right now. I'm having challenges just working on this book. Extremely meta. It was really bizarre. So you're reading about her experience and you're having things happen to you. And I've
Yeah.
heard I've heard other people say that that was like their heart rate goes up and your eyes are dry. It's just really bizarre, almost like a spiritual, physical experience. Yeah.
I can see why you wanted people to read this.
Right? Right? Because and then the thing somebody asked me, what is the most common reaction? Can I swear?
Yeah.
Can we add it? Okay.
Yeah.
And the most common reaction to this book was like, what did I just read? I hear that over and over and over again, and I can't explain it.
So
What
the
was it?
most of the first book, I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Right? Yeah.
Because it happened so quickly that sometimes my
Yeah.
brain just was like left behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it does. It does happen. And then at the end, you don't really get an answer and you're left with all those theories. And it's the same thing with the second book. And I I'm very proud to say that the third book answers your question.
Good.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
You finally get a resolution. Yeah.
do you want to read the second half of Marina's response?
Sure. Yeah, so the question, so you asked her a question about how did that work with Marie and Sergey, and what was the experience like of writing this book? And so she says, Sergey and I like to say that we had a partnership between a director and an actress. We discussed the book together, then I wrote it, and we discussed it again. We argued, discussed it some more, and then I rewrote it, which I can attest. Yep, that's how it works. We started working on the second book after a long break, and the hardest part was making the decision to do it. It was tough, but we never regretted it, especially after writing the third book, which made the trilogy complete and whole. Julia and I are eagerly anticipating the release of the third book as it closes the trilogy and answers the questions that may have come up after the second part. Sergey and I wrote the first book of the Vita Nostra trilogy in the spring. It was an amazing time. We worked in the mornings and afternoons, and in the evenings, we would go to this beautiful park near our home. Actually, it was more like a real forest. We walked among the pines, discussing the book or chatting about all sorts of nonsense, the three of us together, my husband, our daughter, and me. That's how I remember working on the book. A spring evening, the sun setting, us walking and talking, and summer just around the corner. The book may seem dark, but it is full of hope.
That is such a beautiful passage.
That is Marina. Yeah. Yeah. Marina is one of the most beautiful people I've ever met, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Yeah. Extremely strong.
Yeah, so she's got a lot going on and she's in Europe right now. So,
No, actually, no, they moved to
oh,
the States. So they were
okay.
born in Kiev. Both of them are from Kiev, and they moved to Moscow for their daughter's school, and then eventually they moved to the States, to LA, in 2012, I think,
Oh, okay.
before Vita Nostra came out. So they've been in the States, before the Ukrainian war. Way before that.
Okay. It's interesting that
Mhm.
they chose to publish it in Russian if they were in the US.
So I that is, I wish Marina was here for this. So
You don't have to answer these. I just find it interesting. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, I mean they're really well known. They're
Yeah.
extremely well known in Russia. So they're very famous in Russia. They're a household name. And so most of their, out of their 32 novels, they were all published in both Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's a complicated situation, obviously, but they've always, when I asked them, especially when the Russian-Ukrainian war started, not the latest,
Yeah.
violent iteration, but back in, 10 years ago, when that whole thing just came about, we obviously, we talked about it. And, they always talked about being Ukrainian writers writing in Russian, which, because it was, that's how it was easier to publish. But they always ensured that their books are published both in Russian and Ukrainian. The books in the US was never really a plan. It was, they just were very lucky that that happened.
Yeah.
And before Vita Nostra, there was another novel published by Tor, The Scar, which is phenomenal. So The Scar is amazing. It's definitely more of a fantasy, different genre, but it's an amazing book that is so worth reading. One of my favorites of theirs. Uh,
As a reader, did you read Vita Nostra when it first came out then?
I did. I did. I tried to keep up with, as much as I can that comes out in Russian, mostly because, I just want to keep the language because I've been here for over 30 years. And it's surprisingly hard to maintain your literary Russian, like not the everyday Russian, but things you just kind of they become more passive. So I tried to read as much as I can, and that was one of the books that came out that were a revelation to me. And there's so much of that I related to just the whole process of academic learning and the sacrifices, and then as a when it came out 20 well 20 something like that, and my kids were still like in middle school, and so for me that question of how far do you push your children when you see the potential
Yeah.
but before you break them. When do you insist on piano lessons? When do you insist on extracurricular activities? Like how important are grades? How far do you push your children? That was a question, and I still don't have the answer. And so there's just so many things that I related to in this book.
Well,
So,
that's wonderful. And
um,
I can't imagine I can't imagine why it took so long for you to get your translation published because it seems like such a universal experience from many
um,
angles.
So some of it was that, just purely logistics, like the Dyachenkos had a different
Oh,
agent
that's
who
right. Yeah.
didn't think that the book was. I still have an email from someone in the industry. I keep this email practically, printed on my desk. That said, American public is not ready for Vita Nostra, and your translation is no good. So this is always something that I like to refer to when I have doubts about myself and just say, okay, well, all right, moving on. Clearly, that was wrong. And then, so, part of it was just the logistics of getting the rights. And then part of it was, translated literature. It's only, and it's cross genre, it's speculative genre, but
Yeah.
it's literary speculative genre. So there's been a switch in the last 10, 15 years. There's definitely, the industry pivoted a little bit. And, and a big part of it is that, Harper Voyager with David Pamerica, our editor, they took a chance. It's translated book from people no one knew anything about. And so I give him a huge credit, him and our agent, Josh Getzler, that they recognized how important this book would be and how, yes, it's complicated, but it's phenomenal. So yeah, they they saw the future in it.
Well, that's beautiful. Did you keep so did you translate the second book before you'd gotten the first published then?
No, we actually, so I had the first one translated. Actually, I have like, I think I lost track a little bit. I think I have nine of their novels translated altogether. So Vita Nostra was the first one. Then it was a two-book deal with Vita Nostra and Daughter from the Dark, which is a standalone novel of theirs, which I also love. And Vita Nostra was a standalone. We didn't think of that as, it was it was a complete project. There was nothing that in the plans to do anything about. And it was actually the success of Vita Nostra that made Harper Voyager say, well, we would love to see the second and the third. So, and then Sergey and I went to work with Marina and, had to talk her into writing the second one because for all of us, it was a complete project. It
Yeah.
was a standalone book. And I am thrilled that she agreed that they ended up writing the second book. And the second book came out. Um, we got the final, editorial changes after Sergey had passed. So she finished it on her own, which I don't know. She's taught me so much about resilience and functioning in a time of enormous personal tragedy. And then the third one she wrote on her own because she made a promise to Sergey to finish the trilogy.
Does it feel tonally different without Sergey being there?
Uh, it does and it doesn't. It's a different kind of book. I think even, the switch from the first to the second book was Sasha grows up a little bit. And in the
Yeah.
first book, in the first book, with her relationship with her mother, yes, she cares very much. And that's a huge part of the book, right? But you know that even if her mother died in the second half of Vita Nostra, Sasha would still be doing this, right? She is at this point, once she gets hooked on this knowledge and on this transformation and her new abilities, she would, whether or not the pressure, the fear for her mother's safety, whether it was there or not, she would still be going and doing the same thing. And with Assassin of Reality, when she is in love and she has someone, not a parent, but someone, a love interest, a partner, that's when the stakes go very, very high.
Mhm.
And that's when she has to kind of, think of another person. And it's more natural to have, kind of a selfish relationship with your parents, right? But not with your partner. In the third book, oh, can I don't know if I should do a spoiler, but in the third book, I think Marina has talked about it, so I think it can at least set the stage. Um, she is, she takes on a role of one of her teachers,
Okay.
right? So she is now the head of TORPA, Institute of Special Technologies. If you think that's too much of a spoiler, please feel free to. But now she's got to remove it. But now she's got students, and it's a complete role reversal in how she handles it, and at the and the way she now feels the responsibility of the world on her shoulders. That I think that's the biggest difference in tone
Okay.
when she has to make decisions on her own. And I think that's part of probably Marina's experience right there as well.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
it's so strange because she does grow up in the books, and
mhm,
a lot of times you don't get to see that in
right.
books that are quote unquote young adult starting,
Mhm,
right? So,
yeah.
was that a challenge to translate some of those things, or was it just simply you felt like you were growing with her?
I kind of, well, I was older. So when I started translating, I was in my 30s. So I was definitely older, but not that much, significantly. So
Yeah.
I still remember my college experience. I remember every day. It just wasn't that dissimilar. But I think I grew up with the Dyachenkos books as a translator.
Okay.
So I started, Vita Nostra was not commissioned. So I was kind of like, oh, if this sentence doesn't work, whatever, I'll come back and redo it later. And then the second and the third were commissioned. And so I knew they were going to be published. That's a totally different approach. And I had deadlines. I never had deadlines. And suddenly it was like, with Assassin, it was, and because we had deadlines, and publishing industry, it doesn't wait. They were writing it and sending me chapter by chapter, and I was translating, having absolutely no idea where this is all going and how it's going to end. And there was so much revision, and I would get this one file after another with all those changes and have to go back. So I grew up a lot as a translator doing the second book. And so the third book, I said, oh God, we're not doing this again. Just send me half when it's done. Don't give it to me chapter by chapter because there's just like too much when I don't know where it's going. It's
Yeah.
fascinating process, but it makes it much harder to miss something significant and not know how it's going to affect the ending.
Yeah.
So with the third book, I waited for Marina to be mostly done with the draft, and then I worked on it. So
I keep thinking like I've absolutely read books and thought a character was like a pretty okay character, like they're fine
mhm.
as a person. And then you get to the end and you're like, the hell? They're awful.
Snape. Sorry.
Right?
Or the other. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they have really complicated characters. I once said to Sergey, you you hate your characters. The stuff you subject them to, oh my God, there is like anything from physical pain to emotional distress. And he looked at me like I had three heads on. He said, but they all are fine at the end. Like, what are you talking about? This is just the journey. This is the process. You have to go through pain to, emerge a success. And so he thought that, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought he's right. This is really, and as Marina says, the books may seem extremely dark, but they're so full of light and hope. And, at the end of the day, they're happy.
yeah.
They're happy. It's kind of like, like Shakespearean comedies, like everyone dies, but there's, at the end, somebody's getting married. So it's comedy. This is great.
Well, it's only a comedy because the people in charge are dying.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yep.
are you working on any other translations right now?
Uh, so because of the war, um, there's not much, there's nothing like, serious in the pipeline, but that doesn't mean, I've got all this, I'm still doing things. I'm volunteering for this online publication, that is, it's an anti-war, Russian arts, oppositional review. So I work on that. And there's a lot of poetry, and we keep talking about how this Russian oppositional arts review, how this is really only for the time that, we keep hoping that there will not be another issue, that there will be no need for the oppositional arts. But we keep doing it. So I work on that. And I have, a couple of novels that I translated that we hope to place. But if we don't, maybe we'll self-publish them eventually, maybe. Um, so there's, and Marina's writing. I don't know how, but she's writing under, tremendously sad, horrible circumstances. She's still writing. So
Sometimes it's the writing that helps you get through. So
yeah,
I can
yeah,
see that.
yeah, yeah. I think
Are
so.
you, would you translate her work in the future then?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I do hope. I mean, we're really hoping that some of the stuff that we already have done. There's a beautiful book that everyone always asks about because there's a movie on Amazon available. I think it's available on Amazon Prime called "He's a Dragon," and everyone always asks me about it because it's based on one of their novels, The Ritual. So we're hoping that will happen. It's a beautiful retelling of the Beauty and the Beast sort of situation. And then there's a detective story, novel and short stories that I recently finished, and it's about these two detectives from two different warring countries that are solving cases. But one is from the land of the giants, and the other one is a human. So that sort of physical proportional issue is, and it's called scale. So and it's amazing, it's gorgeous, it's just such a fantastic story, and all their books like break my heart into little pieces every time. So I finished that, and we're hoping that something will, something else will come. But we're really looking forward to Vita Nostra 3 coming out because it is the end of the trilogy. It's kind of the end of the era for both of us,
Mhm.
and it's such a beautiful tribute to both Marina's daughter and her husband. And we keep talking about how Marina, Sergey's sitting up there somewhere and waving, and he's happy that she told him she would, and she did.
Do you think he would still want to argue with her about it though?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
100%, yes, 100%. We've had many, many arguments. They've had many arguments, and there weren't arguments. There were debates.
Yeah, right.
Debates, yeah. Because I think Marina and I are more practical in our approach to life. We're tragic optimists,
Yeah.
and Sergey was an optimist through and through, a romantic, and he really always believed the best in people. So we were always trying to, debate that point. So
Oh, goodness.
yeah, yeah.
I can't, I'm a little upset that I've never read their work before now, and I have to go find everything that they have in English.
Yeah, so I mean, you're kind of stuck with what I've done for the most part, but so
You
so
did a great job.
definitely thank you. So there's Vita Nostra, there's the sequel Assassin of Reality, which you have. There's the third one, School of Shards, that's coming out on June 17th. There's definitely check out Daughter from the Dark, which is a standalone. And then The Scar was beautifully translated by Eleanor Huntington, and it is a stunning work, just gorgeous. And it's actually part of a tetralogy, which I'm really hoping someday that we'll get to work on, somebody gets to work on the other three. But it is, you can definitely read it as a standalone. So it's just amazing book. And that came out, I want to say 2012, maybe,
Oh,
from
okay.
Tor, published by Tor. Yeah. And there's a small, I'm gonna blank out on the name, the Tower, something Tower. It's actually free, from Tor, published a novella that is
Okay.
kind of a tie-in to Daughter from the Dark. And I can't remember how it's translated, but I can send you that information. If you look up the Dyachenkos, you'll see it there. So
Thanks. What is the name of the anti-war art project you work on?
um give me 1 second, I'll tell you, because it's called Roar. It is, you can edit me, right? Because I
Yes.
should know this. I always, because they kind of renamed it a couple of times. So it's not Russian oppositional art review. It is resistance. Sorry. It's resistance and opposition art review.
Okay.
And I can send you the link to it. And it's basically a collection of prose essays and poetry that is there to chronicle what's happening right now, and things that are written in Russian at the time when Russian language is the language of the enemy.
Yeah. I think those are incredibly
Um,
important. So I really want to maybe showcase some of those, at least have the
yeah,
website. So
I can definitely send you. So they have the, obviously they publish in Russian, and then it's all volunteer run.
yeah.
So a bunch of us volunteer translators, the writers and poets, they donate their work, and we'll work. And then there's a team of editors that works in a completely volunteer run.
Mhm.
And the kind of the head of this whole thing is this journalist, publicist Lenore Garalik, who is now the enemy of the people, and is practical. It's really just illegal to run this online publication. So it's, very, has a stigma attached to it in Russian. So she always warns people that if you work with us and you are affiliated with, you're a Russian citizen, you probably want to reconsider. So it's an amazing, body of work. And I always think of it as that someday when, all wars end eventually, when this is all over, um, hopefully soon, then this will be a testament to the times.
Yeah.
So
It's I can't help thinking about the poetry and prose that were written during any other time of conflict
yeah,
that became
yeah.
incredibly important after.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we talk about, all my translation, Russian translator friends, we always talk about how do we go on? What do we do? The language we work with, the language we live, is the language of the enemy.
Yeah.
And we still haven't, I mean, we're all trying to find a way to deal with it. But yeah, it's, it's a terrible, horrible time for all of us.
Well, I really hope you don't have to publish another issue. So,
We keep saying, like, maybe this is the last one. Please let it be the last one. So,
well, thank you,
yeah.
Julia, so much for talking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
And thank you so much for reading Marina's words for us. I think it's really important that she has a voice here. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And if anybody out there hasn't read Vita Nostra, I highly suggest it, especially before the third one comes out. Like,
Right.
get on the train.
Yeah, and you will have lots of questions, which I'm more than happy to answer. So, contact me, connect to me on social media or through my website, and I'm more than happy to tell you and point you to all the lengthy Reddit conversations about what did this ending mean and where this is all going. So, yeah, you're not alone in this experience.
I will be confused forever until the third one.
I'm happy to talk about it anytime. It's like my favorite topic in the world.
Well, thank you again. And everybody out there, I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank
Bye.
you, Dakota. Bye.